I didn't have any students with moderate to severe disabilities in the classroom that I'm working in, but I did still learn a lot from this lesson. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got was with the manipulatives. So I have fraction tiles for the students. I had one whole, I had my halves, the fourths, and then the eighths. And they were all different colors to kind of help differentiate them from each other. And then I was working on the whiteboard behind me at the round table. I had my fraction tiles. This is made out of poster board, so it's a little thicker, but it also matched the colors of what they were working with, which I know from like the textbook it talks about like color coding graphic organizers and things like this. So I think this was super helpful for students to kind of build those connections while I was doing it and they were doing it. So you'd be like, oh, 1/4 green one, 1/4 green one, to kind of help them, like I said, make those connections and things like that. Now, if I was working with a student with moderate to severe disabilities, I might alter these a little bit because I find that these are super hard to work with, especially the 1/8 because they're so small. So I would either put like a piece of foam underneath them or put them onto like a 3D shape, like a cube, so they could better work with the manipulatives, because I know that was a big challenge, was working with the 1/8 in the classroom for my students. Also, I did a lot of modeling. I kind of did the gradual release kind of method where I thought about the problem aloud, the first one aloud, and I was like, I know this one's addition because it says in all at the end, and I would circle that and I would like highlight the important fractions, and I kind of thought aloud of how we would solve a word problem to kind of model how they should solve the word problem as well. And then we did the next one together as like a guided practice, and it was like very student-led, but I'm glad we did that before I sent them to do independent work, because there were some misconceptions about like clues in the word problem that lead to subtraction. So we had to go over that, like the difference and how many are left and how much like this has how many more than this one, things like that kind of were a little confusing to students. And I was kind of surprised because I would thought previously that they had like extensive background knowledge in addition and subtraction word problems because they are in 4th grade, but maybe they're just a little rusty on that one. So I think definitely going over the like the vocabulary and maybe even having an anchor chart being like in all together on one side with like the addition symbol and then a line and then the subtraction symbol with like the difference, how many are left, things like that. It's going to help students get a clue of what the problem is asking, because that was a big challenge in my lesson. So I definitely would include something like that to kind of clarify the vocab and the technical language for students in this population. But the modeling, I think I would keep because I think it's a very effective way to teach. Next, we had the Chromebooks. I had the worksheet on the Chromebook for the students, and this helped them like highlight and circle and things like that. They could have done this on the paper as well, but I think it was just a little more engaging. Like when they wrote their own story problems, they got to draw a picture next to it on their Chromebook and things like that. And I probably would change my lesson a little bit if I was working with a student who had moderate to severe disabilities, maybe including more visuals on the story, putting maybe making like a PowerPoint and having one question on each slide instead of having like a whole page with 3 different ones. Just little things like that. I think I could make the lesson a little more accessible that way. And next, I included interests. So the first week of my practicum, I sent out a Google Form survey. So I got to get excuse me, I got to get to know the students a little better. Their favorite subject, their least favorite subject, their siblings, their favorite sport, favorite show, things like that. Just to kind of get to know them a little bit. So I tried my best to include all of their interests into this worksheet. Obviously, I couldn't include everyone, but I included their teacher's name and their names and their siblings and their favorite foods. And I had like 5 kids say their favorite show was SpongeBob, so I included SpongeBob, things like that. And they were very excited when I was going over the word problems. One of the students was very excited to see his name on the worksheet and he was like, "How do you know I have a brother?" So it was just really great to see them so excited and engaged and math, which was a common answer to the subject they like the least. So it was very good to see them so excited for something that typically they dread doing, which I thought was great. Next, the exit slip. So on the exit slip, I had a spot for them to write their own story-based problem. It could be addition or subtraction with the use of fractions. So I thought this was a very, it was very engaging, I think, because they seemed they seem like they haven't had the opportunity to write many word problems themselves before. So it was just nice to see them be so excited and things like that. Now, if I was working with a student with moderate to severe disabilities, I would bring in some different elements like picture support or talk to text, things like that, or even having symbols where they drag to make the sentence. Things like that, because I think that was a really rewarding experience for the students because they get to create something and then they also got to show what they learned, and they were super excited to combine like the literacy aspect with the math aspect, and it was just really good to see. And then last was the assessment. Now, my assessment, most of it was written on the Chromebook. I did have a few students who kind of like talked me through it instead of writing it. So I think that could be a really good place to kind of alter the lesson a little bit and have some like different variety. Excuse me, have some different variety in the ways students are assessed, whether that be, like I said, like writing it out with like the visual pictures or orally like describing it to you, things like that, or even just like if you have the different fractions, kind of having them point to which ones for the answer, because I think that would be a good way for students with moderate to severe disabilities to show that what they've learned. And then one last point, there was the vocabulary. I think establishing the vocabulary before the lesson would have been a really great move on my part. Maybe having like a anchor T chart with different words that mean addition and different words that mean subtraction in word problems, like in all together, how many are left, what's the difference, things like that, to kind of help students visualize addition and subtraction, like the different words. And I think this will also be a great point to bring in for students with moderate to severe disabilities, to just really like reestablish that vocabulary and things like that. But overall, I think even though I didn't have any students in this population, I really did learn a lot when planning this lesson, and I kind of saw ways to adapt this lesson to students' specific needs.